Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue our journey watching Married at First Sight. Let's get to the show.
And then several days later, he's like, all right, let's sleep in different rooms. I'm like, okay. And then 5 days later, and you said, hey, let's get separated. She's already checked out. I might as well be checked out as well. And then we set some ground rules like, hey, I think, let's agree to see other people, but never bring anyone back home. And then an hour later, she tells me, I just want to come clean. I kind of had an affair with my ex. And then she was like, it wasn't like, yesterday or today. It wasn't during the filming. It was like a week ago. So in my head, I'm doing the math. It's like, oh, right when she asked to be friends, but me ask her not to close the door. And she said yes to all of that.
Okay, so that is not uncommon. I don't recommend people do it this way, but it's not uncommon for people to do that. Is they'll have a kind of pseudo breakup conversation with their spouse where they'll say, yeah, let's be friends. And Katie might have thought, okay, we had the conversation. We're broken up. Now I can date other people. But Derek was on a different understanding. And I've seen this a lot. And I really recommend that people have very explicit conversations about breaking up. Because a lot of times people, they don't want to hurt the other person's feelings. They don't want to have drama. And so they say just a little bit and then they walk away. And then the two people walk away with completely different narratives of what just happened. This happens a lot, honestly, especially in these kinds of like phased breakup periods that people have. So I recommend that people say, okay, so I want to just be friends. I feel like we just need to be friends. And then right away say, and by the way, what I'm saying is that we're free to date other people and our relationship is over. Unless something very weird happens, our relationship is over. It's hard to say that, it's a leap. You're potentially going to hurt someone's feelings. It might create conflict. It's better to say that than to give the impression that you're still exclusively with each other sexually, but friends, and then to have sex with someone else. It sounds like she even kind of knew that it was not a good idea because she used the word affair, according to Derek. Having said all that, it's not uncommon for people in this phased breakup period to kind of jump the gun with dating other people. I don't know if it's necessarily right or wrong, but I wouldn't call it an affair. I would call it jumping the gun on dating other people as they were in the process of breaking up. So it doesn't mean it can't hurt Derek. It can hurt him. It's not like his hurt is invalid or something. But at this point, it's really disappointing to see the two of them kind of snip at each other because throughout the season, they just seemed like really lovely people. And now they're just really going after each other in a way that I don't think is becoming to either one of them. I wish the two of them would just say, look, we had some great moments. It didn't work out. Okay, you had sex with your ex, which I have to say kind of hurts, but we did agree that we were going to be friends, and I guess you kind of jumped the gun on having sex with someone else. I can't say that doesn't hurt a little bit, but I could see why you would think that you were in the clear to do that. I wish they would just say that, And then Derek is harping on the fact that someone has told him that she had sex with her ex during their honeymoon, or couldn't have been a honeymoon, but soon after the honeymoon or something. Anyway, let's continue watching.
And what part of that were we done?
So it was after I said, I think we should just be friends, right?
Oh, after we signed a year lease, after 2 weeks into our marriage, you said, hey, I think we should try being friends.
Derek, we didn't have a marriage.
No,
we didn't have a real
Can I
marriage.
ask you a question I've been meaning?
Right. So according to her, she's like, after I said, let's be friends, and the marriage was over. So it sounds like either Derek was under the wrong impression or Derek is rewriting history so he can make himself out to be the victim in this situation. I don't know. It's hard to tell. They certainly are trying to attack each other. And the one couple whom I never reacted to because they were so in love from the beginning and so good for each other that I didn't have any reaction to them. I watched them, but I just didn't have anything to say other than it's just like, okay, they're in love. They're in a good relationship, and they're just sitting there just like, oh my goodness, anyway.
To ask you,
Yep.
Why did you say yes on decision day?
To give it more time. Neither of us.
You low-key threatened me not to bring any of this up. You said, like, if you mention any of this stuff, I'm not going to be about it.
Are
Like,
you
are you
kidding
like,
me? I threatened you?
Low-key?
Why would you go to dinner with me then if I was threatening you? That doesn't make any
No, it was
sense.
at dinner. What are you talking about?
We didn't even discuss this at dinner.
Yes, we did. That was literally the point of why you
I
wanted to go
looked
to
at
dinner.
you, Derek.
didn't want to talk about anything bad at the reunion. You didn't want to say, like, look, I know some stuff happened, but I prefer we not talk about this. I know
Because
you
it's
told
not
Jeff
related
this
to why
and
we
all
broke
this
up.
stuff.
It's not.
I'm aware, but these are all things that you addressed.
Okay, so it looks as though they had a phased breakup. She jumped the gun a little bit, had sex with her ex. They decided they were going to officially break up. They met up for dinner to talk about what they were going to say on the tell-all. Do they call it a tell-all? I don't know. What is this thing called? Reunion. They call it a reunion. And I'm used to 90 Day Fiance where they call it a tell-all. So they do it. Love is Blind, they called it a reunion as well. Anyway, so looks like they got together, they had dinner, and they, at least from Katie's perspective, she's like, look, let's go on the reunion, let's not attack each other, let's get our stories straight so that we don't come across as crazy people on international television. I'm guessing that's what Katie did. For whatever reason, Derek has decided all bets are off, and I'm going to let her have it. I'm guessing Derek is trying to come across like he's the good guy in the situation. Maybe he feels like he has to account for bad behavior that he did. I don't know. And Katie is trying to defend herself, and she's just trying to get out of the conflict. That's what it kind of looks like. She's trying to lightly defend herself while just saying, like, let's just shut this conversation down. Which I can't blame her.
I talked about it. That's fine. All right, but don't call me a liar while you're doing
I'm not
it.
calling you a liar. I'm saying you're fake. I'm saying we sat down
okay.
together a week ago at
Fair
dinner,
enough.
and you said, I don't want to talk about it either. It's not why we broke up. Let's not have any more drama. And now here you are stirring up the drama.
I'm not stirring up any drama.
Okay.
I'm just saying what happened. And that's it. My hands are done with this whole thing.
Okay.
I do want to ask, is anybody else here surprised that these two didn't work out after the way?
Yeah, this guy always has the best questions, just like Sean on 90 Day Fiance. That I wasn't thinking that in the moment, but when he says it, yeah, that's a great question. I wonder what other people have to say, because I'm guessing a lot of people are surprised by what happened between these two.
Well, I'm sorry to hear your marriage didn't work out. Marrying someone you've never met is no easy feat. Now, I've been informed that two people on the stage from different marriages may have flirted with the idea of flirting with each other.
Interesting. So this isn't, I don't really have a professional opinion about this, but let's see, if I had to take a guess. Well, let's walk ourselves through this. Could it be, I don't know if anyone would want to be with Zach. Maybe Mindy and Derek? I could see that maybe happening. That's an interesting combo. Michael and Taylor, that doesn't, I don't think Taylor likes Michael. Mika and Brandon. Now, there's also a possibility that some of these people are bisexual, and there's something going on there as well. So if I had to take a guess based on that very quick inventory, I would say Derek and Mindy. And, God bless them if they want to give it a try. They're both single, right?
And even went on a date.
Let's find out.
Do you guys want to tell us?
I got drinks with Zach. I think it was a couple weeks before Christmas, kind of just to talk about this whole experience.
So that was not expected. That she would expose herself to Zach, because she knew, at least through Mindy, how interesting Zach was. But I guess, maybe from Katie's perspective, she's like, well, Zach was just never into Mindy. And maybe if he's into me, maybe he'll be a completely different person. And maybe he is a completely different person. I don't know. But it sounds like it didn't blossom into anything else.
She was on her way to a Christmas party, and she was like, let's grab drink sometime. I don't really remember who said it to who.
You remember?
I do. Zach,
Oh, you do? Okay,
Zach
then maybe I
suggested
said
it. We were having a conversation just about stuff related to the show, and he was like, yeah, it's been crazy. We should catch up and get drinks, and that was it. I'm sorry, Zach, but we got drinks before anything had aired. So after seeing what had gone down between Zach and Mindy, I feel for Mindy a lot more, and obviously you didn't handle it very well, and that is something that I wouldn't want as far as dating goes.
Okay, interesting. So, yeah, I think anyone watching the show would not want to date Zach. For Katie, she hadn't seen the show. She had very limited information about Zach. So, yeah, that stands to reason. Well, now I kind of want Derek and Mindy to go out just because, they deserve that. See if, maybe they could hit it off. I could see them working out.
Blossomed into so much more. It took me a little longer to say that I love you, but I knew it for a while. And I definitely think we have grown far past that. And I really want to show my commitment to you. So, got a ring for you. This isn't a proposal, but what this is a commitment to you for the rest of our lives.
That's really sweet. It's really great to see love. It's always great to see, right?
Get a little emotional doing it because what we've gone through, how fast it's been, has really been remarkable. And I just truly couldn't believe how well it turned out for me. Because I do love you. That's it? That's it.
Thank you.
So I will say that the show purports to having a high success rate of all these past couples who are still married. I did a systematic analysis of their outcomes on the show, and I also did a full lit review as much as I could within a span of a month or so on all the science behind matchmaking. And I'm just looking at my notes from that episode. It's called, I think I call the episode Scientific Matchmaking. You can listen to it. It's an audio-only episode. And what I found was that when you look at the relationships that they've had on this show, that so there are two different ways to look at it. One was to look at all the relationships that they have matched on the show and look at the percentage of how many of them ended in divorce and how many of them are still married today. That's one way to look at it. The way that I preferred to look at it was among all the relationships that they matched up, how many are in a relationship that is 4 years or longer? Because a lot of marriages can last 1 or 2 or 3 years, but past 4 years, then we're looking at a more likelihood of it lasting a long time. I mean, look at Katie and Derek. They lasted married beyond the end of the show, but then when we get back to the reunion, they've broken up by that point. So when we look at the show's outcomes of relationships that have been married 4 years or longer, and that's really only the first, I think, 5 or 6 seasons, there is a 92% divorce rate. So 92% of the couples that have 4 years after the show or longer have ended in divorce. That is a very low rate of success, I will say. One, in something like 12 maybe of the relationships that are far enough back that we have enough data to look at 4 years or longer are still together. So the stats on this season, because it does look like Austin and Jessica are going to last. Who knows? But there doesn't seem to be any cracks in the foundation of this relationship. So let's assume that they last. Well, this rate is actually somewhat upheld in that a lot of the matches that they do on the show end up in divorce. Now, the show will say, look at all these people that are still together. Well, there are two things to look at. One is, well, let's look at all the people who aren't together, because much more people are not together after this show. The other thing is, well, a lot of the couples that they point to, they were recently on the show. And let's see if they last 4 years or longer, right? Now, maybe all those relationships will last longer, who knows? But I will say that the show isn't very good, in my book, at matching people up. The question I would pose to you is, if you were going to go on a reality TV show like this, and I told you, look, you have an 8% chance of actually being matched with someone that you will be married to 4 years from now, and you have a 92% chance of getting divorced in the next 4 years, or either right away or next year or 2 years from now. You have a 92% chance of this being a divorce, and probably disastrous. on some level. And hurtful, humiliating, difficult to go through, not a pleasant memory in your past. Would you do it? Well, the decision is yours. So that's what I'll say about that. The other thing that I found in my lit review of all the research on matchmaking was that, from what I can tell, this show does not use evidence-based ways of matchmaking. A lot of people, and including this show, will use interviews and surveys to match people up. A lot of dating sites, Match.com and Cupid, OkCupid, and those kinds of sites. Though you fill out this long survey, and they purport that they know if you're a good match with someone or not. Well, the science does not point in that direction. They have repeatedly used large samples in multiple different studies because there's a lot of interest in this, right? If you're a scientist and you come up with a way to match people up to predict whether or not you're going to be attracted to someone and whether or not you're going to last in a marriage, then you have a golden egg of a product that everyone wants. If you could just take a survey and be matched up with the right person, and you wouldn't have to date and you wouldn't have to go through divorces and breakups and everything, you would be matched up with that perfect person. A lot of people would sign up, and a lot of people do sign up because a lot of these websites will make those claims, but they just are not supported by the science. It's too hard to predict whether or not there's going to be chemistry and whether or not it's going to stick together. There are too many variables that cannot be predicted based on survey responses. The other thing is that when people are filling out surveys, they're filling them out based on their own self-awareness. For Brandon on the show, if you asked him, are you a volatile person? Do you kind of lose control sometimes? Do you have an anger problem? He probably would have said, no, I don't have an anger problem. But a lot of people would say, he does have an anger problem. So it makes sense that these survey things do not work very well because people have to be self-aware to be honest on these things. Now, what does the science show that we can actually point to? Well, I listened to my full deep dive called Scientific Matchmaking, I think. But a lot of the chemistry is just unpredictable. Now, one of the things that you can do to actually help people to stay together is to actually help them to be nice to each other, help them to be differentiated, help them to understand their attachment issues and their attachment reactivity, help them understand their spouse's attachment reactivity. This is couples therapy. If you provide couples therapy for people or something along those lines, like a couples workshop or something that is evidence-based and really works, emotionally focused therapy, Gottman therapy, these kinds of things, then the chances actually go up in terms of the chance that these couples are going to last longer. It's not so much whether or not they're going to, it's not so much how to match people up. It's once a match is made, how do you help them? And I believe on this show, if Mika and Michael were provided that kind of John Gottman-based therapy or emotionally focused therapy, I believe that they would have had a chance. I'm not so sure about Derek and Katie because Derek just did not have love for Katie. So I don't know about them. I would think that would be a much more difficult thing to navigate. I think that Zach and Mindy also wouldn't have worked out for the same reason. But I also think that Taylor and Brandon, if they were given good therapy, I think that they could have worked out as well. I don't know about them so much. But Mika and Michael in particular, they had a salvageable relationship, I think. And because of Michael's issues, Mika understandably said, I don't want to deal with this anymore. And if there was a therapist that really, really helped them, I think that it would have worked out. I've worked with much more difficult couples than the two of them and found success. It's actually not that hard. When you're trained and experienced, I've been doing couples therapy and I've been teaching couples therapy for over 20 years. You do anything that long, you get pretty good at it. Yeah, so it's not like I'm an amazing person because I'm good at something. You do anything for 23 years, you get good at it. I wasn't very good in the beginning, but I got better at it as I went along. So, could it have been salvaged? I really do think, I think it could have. So anyway, let's get back to the show.
That's it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to congratulate you on finding the love of a lifetime, and hopefully this is just the beginning of many, many years together. But pretty much everybody else is returning to single life. Are you guys, everybody excited to be dating and getting in the dating pool again?
No.
No.
Oh, so that's sad. I mean, it's fine if they want to take a break, but the way their face looks, they seem to be communicating that they don't believe in dating at all and that they're demoralized by dating. And that makes me sad because they both deserve to have the relationships that they want. And I think that they can attain it if they had a therapist to help them through that. But it sounds like the two of them are giving up. It's nope, I give up. I don't want to do it anymore. They're not saying that explicitly, but it certainly sounds like that. That makes me really sad.
Married to a total stranger, what advice do you have for future participants?
Stay honest through the entire thing, but also take accountability. Like, it's okay to be human. It's okay to make mistakes, but own up to your mistakes. It's not.
So I wonder if this is just going to be everyone giving advice to their ex-spouse, which is what Mika just did. So it's interesting. So let's hear what Taylor has to say.
Not going to work if you don't come here for the right reasons.
Don't build a checkbox of things you need to see or for things to happen, because life works in mysterious ways.
Be open-minded and be yourself.
And have fun.
It's fun when you find the love of your life, right? Yeah. There's a lot.
All right. Well, it's been quite a journey, I have to say. I only watched this show because y'all asked me to watch it. I didn't even know about this show before. And I have to say, at the beginning of the season, I thought, what in the world? Jiminy Crickets, these people are getting married without having ever seen each other. They're just trusting these experts, these so-called experts, to match them up with someone that they're going to spend the rest of their life with. I mean, that is a leap of faith, man. To think that just any old person is going to be a good match for you is just crazy talk. Now, I will say that whether it's due to the experts or not, they did match up what I believe to be good possible matches. Obviously, for the couple that stayed together, that was a wonderful match. I mean, you couldn't get any better than matching up those two. I think that Brandon and Taylor actually could have worked if they had a therapist. I think that Mika and Michael could have worked if they had a therapist helping them. I think that Derek and Katie was a very good guess that they would have worked, and they almost worked, but for whatever reason, Derek just didn't fall in love. Now, why is that? Is Derek open to falling? Because he's claimed he's never fallen in love. So are we looking at some kind of psychological barrier to falling in love? Who knows? I don't want to pathologize a 20-something-year-old person, or I don't know how old he is, 30-year-old person, for never falling in love. It is a little interesting, but there's plenty of people who don't fall in love until they're 40s, 50s, 60s years old, and there's nothing pathological about it. Love works in mysterious ways. But it is interesting. It is notable. I wonder if there is some kind of barrier that is in place, some kind of worry. He's talked about he comes from divorce, and maybe there's also some maturity issues because he was not allowed his childhood, so he kind of holds on to his childhood, and maybe that prevents him from feeling mature love. Who knows? There wasn't a lot of evidence of that. But I thought that that was a good chance. That was a good match in terms of having a good possibility. Zach and Mindy, though, I have no idea why they matched them up. But I guess if I thought about how they might interview, I could see how the experts might have thought, these two might work out. But boy, did they not work out. Right from the start, it was a complete mismatch for the two of them. I cannot imagine a world in which they would have ever worked out, and I do not think a couples therapist could have helped them. In the same way, I don't think a couples therapist could have helped Derek fall in love with Katie. There is some interesting parallels there in that both Zach and Derek both had spark issues in the beginning of the relationship, but we saw two completely different approaches to that. Zach basically put up his walls and was very confusing in his talk and was just dodging and weaving and agreeing with his mouth but not agreeing with his heart. and meanwhile having an affair on the side, seemingly. Whereas Derek really gave it a try. He cuddled with Katie. They had warmth. He was nice to her. He would point out that she was a good person, that she was attractive, and he was attracted to her, that she was a catch. He shared his life with her, and they really seemed like they had a good relationship, but Derek just didn't feel it. So you see that difference there. With Mika and Michael, I think that, Mika has admitted that she has an issue with escalating in anger sometimes and getting a little, I don't know, intense, I think might have been her word, and watching herself, she wants to change that behavior. But really the longevity of the relationship hinged on Michael's seeming issue with his terror of being abandoned or judged or bullied or something that results in him either shutting down and being intellectual and withdrawing, or desperately trying to get approval through exaggeration and lies. And that, of course, shoots him in the foot. And maybe that's why he ends up on this show, because he's had relationships like that in the past. That's always my hope, is that during the reunion, or even in the middle of the season, I mean, that would be entertaining, they drag some exes onto this show. Have Michael call up one of his exes and have that ex come on the show and say, like, well, this is the issue we ran into. And you could actually work it to your advantage. You could say, like, the ex could talk to the marriage and family therapist, and the marriage and family therapist could use that collateral information to say, like, okay, Michael, this is what your ex is saying. It seems like you're exhibiting that same behavior. Sounds like this is a pattern for you. How are we going to work around this? What sort of healing do you need to do? What sort of awareness? How can we support you so that you don't have to engage in those defenses? For Derek and Taylor, it seemed like they were both in it to win it. I think that Brandon had some I don't know, some kind of trauma reactivity during the honeymoon, and he took responsibility for it, but he also tried to white knuckle it, and he would be re-triggered and things would happen. And I think for Taylor, she was totally in it, and then when he treated her very badly, which he did, she basically, I think, just turned herself off to him. And although she was trying to make it work throughout the season, either because she was actually trying to make it work or she was just saying, well, let's just salvage the rest of the season, I don't know. But I think in the beginning and during the honeymoon, I think Taylor and Brandon were both in it for all the right reasons, and I believe they were trying to make it work. But after Brandon completely lost it and was verbally abusive to everyone in this room, except for the host because he wasn't there, and the camera people and all that, I think Taylor just went, oh, I don't like this guy. I don't want to be with this guy. That was very ugly. I don't like what I saw, and I don't want to be with a person like that. I'm just guessing that's what happened. And the camera crew and Taylor kept trying to drag Brandon back into it, and he was like, no, I'm done. But somehow they convinced him to come back, which I find to be very surprising given he hates being on camera. And that provoked him even more, and he became a jerk again, and that provokes Taylor, and it got pretty ugly from that point forward. I wish that they would have just called it off after the honeymoon. It seemed like it was pretty clear that it was over at that point, and they would have just said, well, let's cut our losses. Brandon doesn't want to be on the show anymore. Maybe even set Taylor up with a new person midway through the season. That would be interesting. I'm always thinking from the production standpoint, because the producers are trying to make an entertaining show. And so often, from my perception, they're trying to pressure Brandon back on the show because they want more content. Because I'm guessing at some point Brandon was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And somehow they got him back on the show. Who knows? It's hard to know. And from the beginning, Austin, and I think her name was Jessica, the two of them they hit it off. They had chemistry. She had more chemistry towards him than he did towards her in the beginning, which is, not unusual for some people, but it grew in him. They're both very comfortable with each other. They're both very smiley. They're both very nice people. I'm guessing their parents were pretty good enough for them. They probably had minimal traumas and mistreatment and relational issues growing up so that they don't have a lot of triggers that can be triggered for each other. And everything just worked out for the two of them. So that is my summary of all of these people. And you know what? So a lot of you have been watching with me. And if you're still watching, my God, I am a windbag at this point. This show has been very interesting to me. 90 Day Fiancé is interesting for sure, but I find this show to be very interesting because the show really goes into how are these people going to fight? What are their issues? You know, what's going on here? On 90 Day Fiancé, like the Lisa Usman situation, you just think like, well, what's really going on there? Especially during the tell-all, you're thinking like, was Usman really ever in that relationship? It's just hard to tell. Of course, the Williams Yolanda situation, you're like, this is hard to watch. In this situation, you seemingly have 10 people who are looking to get married. They want to make it work. They're trying. And we get to watch and see how it works out. And I think it gives us a lot of opportunity to learn about human nature, to learn about marriage, to learn about dating, to learn about differentiation, how to have fights, how to not, how to open up conflicts, how to take responsibility, how to use an I position, how to take care of your spouse when they have trauma triggers that are triggered and that exhibits bad behavior from them, and you don't put up with it, but you also understand where it comes from. I feel like this show really provides a lot of that. So I'm really glad that y'all asked me to watch this and go through it. It's been quite a journey. And when I first sat down to do this show, I thought, well, I'll just rip through this. You know, I'll kind of cram in a lot, and it'll take me like a week to get through. It has taken me months to get through this show because this show would just provoke so much yammering from me because the show was so dense with, I think, material to comment on. So anyway, let me know what you think. What other shows do you think I should be doing? Did you enjoy this journey with me? I hope you did. Because if you've watched all of this, all the Married at First Sight with me, you and me, we've been on a journey together. You've agreed with me, you've disagreed with me, you've been bored with me. You've been watching. And, this podcast is small enough that I get to know a lot of you. And so, please let me know. Comment below, go to our website, click on the contact page, email me. I'm curious. Really go through it. Do you agree with my hypotheses on Mindy, on Zach, on Katie, on Derek, on Mika, on Michael, on Brandon, on Taylor, on Vixen, on Blitzen, on anyway, everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.